This video we're going to be looking at the accounting spreadsheet that you are creating based on the results of your accounting monopoly class activity in the second day of week 2. Of course, this assignment is due on Saturday of week 2 at 11:59 p.m. Our first stop is the cash flow. It's the first document. I might also call it the general ledger. I want to make this title nice and pretty, so I write cash flow here in cell A1. Then I'm going to make it bold so it's pretty, and then select cells A1 through E1 and click merge. Makes the title nice. You don't have to do this, but it's a nice touch. Then I'm going to have 5 columns in row 2. Start out with quarter. That gives us the time so that we know when the transaction happened. Very important, because it will allow you to go into your income statement and your balance sheet and understand what it is that you are writing in each section. I do quarter, then transaction. That is the line item detail of every item that I purchased or sold or whatever. Debit is any category or any transaction, excuse me, that had money going out. So money coming away from your general fund. This could be purchasing of property, paying luxury tax, paying rent to another player, whatever. For this category and for the next column, credit, I'm going to click those two, and then I'm going to click format. I want this format to be currency, and I want it to be like this. So 2 decimal places, the dollar sign, and negative numbers would have red with parentheses. You'll see why in a second. The credit column, the second one that I highlighted, is for any transactions coming in. So if you sold something to another player, if you collected rent, you passed go, whatever it may be, you're going to write it there. Finally, the balance is to give you a running balance of your account after every transaction. It helps a lot because it allows you to understand where your money is going, how your flow is going. You can't pay bills if you don't got the cash. So we're going to write in 2 or 3 transactions so you can see what this is going to look like. Our first transaction is receiving starting money. So we'll put here on their transaction starting funds. It's a credit, and it's $1,500. So for this line only, I'm going to write a balance, a sum formula for these two. Notice the way you type it, it's equals sum, open parentheses, C3, colon, D3, close parentheses. When I'm done, I press enter. In the next line, I'm going to do a hypothetical transaction where I purchase Baltic Avenue. Because Baltic Avenue is a property, it's something that I'm buying rather than selling, I need to put it in the debit column rather than in the credit column. So instead of having it over here, I'm going to have it over here. That also means that I'm going to start the number with a minus sign so that when Excel is doing its math, it can calculate it as a number coming out rather than going in. I look up on the board at Baltic Avenue, and that costs $60. Notice how when I exit that cell, it now has the red ink and the parentheses. This makes it very clear for you to be able to see that this number is a negative. I leave credit blank, nothing is coming in, so my transaction is almost done. Since it's the second transaction, I'm going to write a different formula so that I can keep a running balance. Here's what it is. Equals E3, which is the previous sum. Then I click debit. That'll give me automatically plus. And then I click credit. So it's equals E3 plus C4 plus D4. And I press enter. This is why putting this number here, the debit, as a negative number is very important. You can just do adding all the way through, problem is solved. I'm going to show you one more transaction just to see how this number goes. And click Q1. Then I'm going to pay rent of negative $10. And one more, I'm going to put Q1, pass go, collecting $200. Okay? So I kept these two negative, and then this one is positive. All I have to do, because of the formula that I entered, is highlight this the last one where my formula is found, then look for the little box that is here in the bottom right corner. I'm going to grab it and hold, then bring it down like this. And the formula is giving me a running balance. That is the cash flow. Now if you want it to look all nice and tidy so that you don't have overlap like you do here, right here, in cells B3 and B4, highlight the 5 columns like this, go to the last one so your mouse appears like that with a straight line up and 2 arrows, and just double click. It'll automatically fill it in that way. That is the cash flow section. Section number 2 is the income statement. You see here we have the title up front, income statement. We have several important categories that you need to keep track of. And also we have different quarters because the income statement is going to be broken down based on the quarter in which the transaction happened. You can edit the number of quarters or add columns based on how long your game went. It's up to you. So we have 3 types of revenue that we are looking at. First, we have rent received. This is any time that somebody landed on a property that you own and they need to pay you rent. So in the Baltic Avenue property that you owned, the rent is, I don't know, like $4, $6, whatever it is. You can go ahead and anytime somebody lands on that property and you collect those $6, you would write it here on your cash flow, right? And then on your income statement, you would add up all the times that you collected rent in a given quarter, and you would write it here. So let's say hypothetically you collected $65 of rent in a quarter because you bought a couple properties. The next type of revenue is passing go. You want to keep track of every time that you pass go because that is not the same sort of revenue. Rent received is something that you're gaining out of an asset. Passing go is something you receive because you just happen to roll the dice a few times. So let's say in this quarter we pass go twice. And then finally, miscellaneous revenue. This could be for any number of reasons: a community chance card, a community chest card, a chance card, any other form of revenue that is not included in either rent received or pass and go would file under miscellaneous revenue. So let's say we got $100 for this. What we do next is we type equals sum again, and then we're going to put B5, which is the first cell that the revenue is found in, rent received. We type a colon like that, and then we type B7. Press enter, because that is the last line of revenue. Total revenue is $565. Next we move on to expenses, and under expenses we can write anything that is money that left us for whatever reason. An important note that on the income statement you do not have to write the numbers in negative like you did on the cash flow. If you choose to, that'll change just one little thing in a second, but you don't have to. We're going to keep it positive because that's how normal income statements are written. So we want to know how much we spent on property. That's what asset purchases is. So let's say we have the purchase of Baltic Avenue, and let's say we also purchased one railroad, which are on the board for $200. So in total, we spent $260. In rent payments, we landed 3 times. We paid about $20 each, so $60 in rent payments. We paid taxes. For taxes, this is any time on a community chest card or a chance card you receive an indication that you have to pay the bank. Not the other players, but a bank. Or anytime it says the word tax. Also included on a tax is anytime you have to pay to leave jail, because of course the jail is run by the government. So taxes of any sort, we're going to write here. Let's say that we were in jail once, we paid to get out, that's $50. And then fourth, you put any expenses that are not found in the purchases, rent payments, or taxes category. This could be for mortgaging your property, anything like that, you would put it here. So let's say we're 0 for this corner. Do the same sum formula you did before. So we do sum B13 colon B16, close it out. We have $370. We want that to be bold so that we can see it nice and pretty. Now we're going to go to the bottom. We're going to write the sum formula here equals total revenue, which in this case is B9, minus B18, which is the total expenses cell. If you have chosen to put the expenses in negative numbers, then you have to put B9 plus B18. because a negative minus a negative turns into addition. To recap, if you use the expenses as a positive on the income statement, it's B9 minus B18. If you put the expenses as a negative, then you put B minus plus B18. Press enter. We have our number. We gained $195 over the course of the quarter. Because you're going to be playing multiple quarters, you're needing to do this formula again. The great thing about Excel is that same drag you did over in the first cell, or in the first sheet, excuse me, you can do here as well. So we're just going to drag these out because we know we're going to be using them anyway. And then the formulas will populate themselves. It's pretty great. Of course, in this section as well, make sure, you don't have to do this at the beginning, you could do it at the end, but make sure that you format those cells as well for currency, 2 spots, the currency symbol of the dollar, and then negative in red parentheses. That's income statement, statement number 2. Statement number 3 is the balance sheet. And on this sheet, you're going to be looking at your assets and liabilities just like you learned in class on the first day of this week. So here we have another series of sections. The first asset, as always, is cash. Remember, these are the assets and liabilities at the end of the quarter, not at the beginning. So please keep note at the end of the quarter how much of each you had. The first stop is to write the number of cash that you have, or the amount of cash, excuse me. So let's say at the end of quarter 1 we had $500 left in cash. Then at the end of quarter 1 we bought a railroad and Baltic Avenue, so that's $260 of property. In order to use the asset value, what you want to do is you want to get the board value of your property and then add the rent that's being paid. If for whatever reason you have a house, notice that that rent is going up. And that's the reason that we do it that way, because you want to make sure that you're getting the current value. It's not fair on an accounting spreadsheet to write that the value of a property is the same whether it was just purchased and is barren otherwise or has a hotel on it. So remember, the formula here for each individual property is the amount of money on the board that the property is worth plus the rent currently charged to anybody who lands on it. The third is miscellaneous assets. Things like this are get out of jail free cards or stuff like that. Any get out of jail free card, you would value it at $50. So let's say we don't have any right now. We're going to use another sum formula. In this case, we're doing B5 colon B7. Press enter, we have our number. These are our asset values at the end of quarter 1. Next is the liability section. And in this section, we're going to cover 3 areas: outstanding debt, mortgage properties, and any other liabilities you may have. Great thing about Monopoly is that outside of the general rules that are printed in the book, you can kind of make some rules up as you go. It's part of the fun. And those rules oftentimes are subject to market forces. So let's say you land on somebody's property that has a hotel, and out of the kindness of their heart, I guess, they decide to let you pay off your debt in an installment form. That would go here under outstanding debt. Otherwise, generally the answer here is going to be 0 because most players aren't that nice. Line number 2 is any mortgage properties. When you mortgage a property, you get basically a short-term loan from the bank, and that debt is now owed. So if you mortgage any property, you would have the value of that property as what you owe the bank, because that money is only temporarily yours in exchange for the asset. In this case, quarter 1, it's kind of hard to see properties being mortgaged, so we're going to put 0 for that as well. And then number 3, miscellaneous liabilities, anything you may owe because of the community chest or the chance. Generally speaking, this category will be if you are in jail at the end of a quarter. If you are in jail at the end of a quarter, then you would be on the hook for $50 because you don't know if you're going to have to pay the amount of money or not. You might roll a double and get out of jail, or you might have to pay the fines. So because you could be on the hook for $50, we're going to write it here. So let's say you were in jail at the end of quarter 1. You would put $50. Notice how I put it positive because those numbers are positive on balance sheets. Then I'm going to do a sum formula here of total liability. So B13 to B15. I have my number. Put this whole row bold, make it nice. Then, like we did on the income statement, we're going to look for owner equity, which is assets or B9, minus B17, which is liabilities, gives us our owner equity or net worth at the end of quarter one. Of course, if you put these numbers in negative, then you have to put B9 plus B17. Please remember that. B9 plus B17 if you put these negative, but if you put it all positive, it's B9 minus B17. Like we did before, we're going to extend these formulas out because we're going to need them anyway. So let's go ahead and do that now. And then we are done. We can fill in the numbers. Again, remember, just like in the income statement, you can go ahead and add more quarters or subtract, whichever one is relevant to you. If you have any questions, please do not hesitate to email me, and I hope you enjoyed this activity.